serious, white people who grew up in low-income families or didn't experience the good life. What does white privilege mean to you and how do you feel about the term? One time I got pulled over and I had a bench warrant for a ticket I didn't pay. My young children were in the car. I begged the officer to take off the handcuffs so my children wouldn't see. And he did. And then he let me drive to the police station to pay my fine while he followed me. I really didn't think anything of it until I saw black people dying while being pulled over. That is white privilege. Edit. Thanks so much for the award. It is my first one. Stay safe everyone. Meanwhile, I had a police officer target me. He walked into the restaurant where I was working and announced he was going to get me. Followed me for over a month and gave me a failure to stop ticket while claiming he would have stopped me sooner, but he couldn't even catch up to me in his cruiser. A bench warrant was issued while I saved up to pay the ticket. I stupidly went to the police station instead of court once I could settle everything. Walked up, introduced myself and said I wanted to clear everything, and I was arrested and handcuffed to a wall for hours while they processed me. I turned myself in with money in hand and apparently I was a flight risk. I think the word privilege irks people a bit. I had struggles. How am I privileged? Everything I own I earned myself. I can understand how people would feel that way to some degree, and it usually comes from a lack of understanding due to the phrase of white privilege. That and racism. Sometimes. Reduced discrimination due to being white doesn't have the same ring to it as white privilege. This is pretty much how I see it. I was never f***ed over by my skin color. But I had a few friends that weren't allowed to play with me because I was from a broken home. Where I'm from we don't have many black people. But the two I had in my grade looked like they had good families and they weren't on welfare like we were. There were a lot of kids of rich people of all races. The poorest of us in my class all seemed to be Caucasian. But we weren't the worst off. I might have been poor and dealt a rough hand relatively. But the natives always had it worse. At home. In general though, I just am happy for what I have. I left behind envy and resentment a very long time ago. The question reflects a common but fundamental misunderstanding of what the term white privilege means. White privilege isn't some secret club that causes you to be handed free money and power, i.e. the good life, at birth. It just means you don't get undue scrutiny or unfair treatment by authorities because of your skin color. To be fair, we also use the word privileged in a fairly generic sense to mean wealthy, lucky, good family friends, etc. I'm not surprised if some people are genuinely confused. Of course. I'm pretty sure a lot of others are willfully feigning confusion. I grew up poor with a mother who was very irresponsible, spending money we didn't have and time better spent raising her kids doing drugs. I got into a lot of trouble in my teen years with drugs and generally being a FCK up. I'm only half white but I look white. And to me white privilege is not getting into as much trouble as I deserve to be in. So many times I was let off with a warning for loitering or shoplifting or brushed off by teachers as being tired or troubled when I was showing up to school high. And I know I wouldn't have gotten that kind of leeway if I wasn't, mostly, white. Edit. Wording. I legit walked in with a black friend to a store. He got tailed by the store clerk whole time. I didn't. Friend got called pretty for a black girl. I got told I have nice hair. Heard wow he sounds so professional, I thought that he was white. It's not about living the good life. I grew up poor. I grew up with a kerosene heater in my kitchen because our lights and power were cut off very often, or let's have a campfire tonight. Cause we didn't have electricity for the stove to turn on. It's about how you are treated. White privilege isn't a you didn't grow up poor. White privilege is being treated like a human being because you're a human being and your skin tone being ignored. I don't get shot if I steal, I get arrested. I get the benefit of the doubt. I don't get called Anna behind my back, or does that old lady think what's he up to while walking down the street. It's not about your money. Or your class. It's about not being treated like you're a criminal or a subhuman. Currently trailer trash working my way out of the park. It's freaking hard. And the assumptions people make are infuriating. My daughter has special needs and I feel like I have to work extra hard to get her what she needs. Like, the therapists won't come to the house so we have to go to them multiple times a week. I'm exhausted. I hate feeling like if we lived somewhere else things would get easier. Watching friends just ride welfare and not do anything about themselves is frustrating too. Hopefully we're only a year or two away from a down payment on a real house. I grew up poor. And I refuse to let my daughter grow up the way I did staring in an empty fridge. I work 2 jobs so she never has to worry. Looking down on another group of people and making generalizations is always wrong. Even if they belong to the same race as you. Simple as that. It's always based in ignorance. You'll always find a complete spectrum of character, actions, attitudes, etc. within any cultural, racial, economic group. People are people no matter where they live, how they look, or how much money they have. The societies they form are equally flawed and the people are equally deserving of dignity. On the other hand, power structures, organizations, policies, and governments can be good, bad, or harmful, benevolent. Individuals can act in ways that improve the lives of others or oppress them. I think everyone has learned to generalize others for convenience and we're encouraged all our lives to do so. Personally, I have learned to keep all this in mind and I think it's changed my worldview for the better. Privilege doesn't mean that everything is always wonderful for you and you suffer no hardships. It means you don't have to deal with specific bullshit that minorities have to deal with. Privilege also goes both ways. There is certainly minority privilege for things like affirmative action. I grew up poor in North Carolina. 2-bedroom house, 5-person family. To me, white privilege is a term used to distance everyone from understanding the humanity inside of all of us. It's a weapon to make white people feel guilty and an idea to make colored folks feel disenfranchised. My high school had a 10% white enrollment rate. Believe me, white privilege and black privilege are terms of perception. You can see the world how you choose to. I choose to see the merits of individuals around me rather than the injustices of my life. This is true. My girlfriend grew up in a similar situation. Her mother was a drug addict and mentally ill. Father wasn't really in the picture. She was neglected and abused by other family members and family friends. She subsequently has PTSD among other issues now in adulthood. I think it's silly to think she had much privilege compared to, say, the children of Michael Jordan, for example. There are much bigger influences on life than skin color, such as having loving, supportive parents, wealth, or your nationality. I think my forefathers worked extremely hard to ensure I have a good life, and built a society based on the notion that future generations have an easier life than they did. So to hear that my skin color is the real reason that life is good, and not the blood, sweat and tears of my forefathers, is extremely insulting, and frankly it's starting to feel racially motivated. People look at me and see my skin color, as if it magically made things good for me. I kind of resent it. To me, it implies that every white person has led an easy life and that it's hard to be discriminated against when you're white. Many more factors than race also come into play. White privilege doesn't exist. I see post after post of people saying white privilege means my life wasn't hard because of my skin color, which is BS. I grew up poor, worked my ass off, but I've had a gun pulled on me for being a white kid in a black neighborhood. I've had black people threaten to kill me because I was at a gas station to fill up my tank after school. I've had glass bottles thrown at me for driving through the neighborhood. Just because you haven't experienced racism because of the color of your skin doesn't mean other white people haven't. Just like all black people haven't been victimized by the police or discriminated against. These generalizations are stupid. Every individual is responsible for their own actions. Making generalized statements that encapsulate an entire race or ethnicity is prejudiced and bigoted, which I thought was what people were supposed to be standing against. I grew up pretty poor. We never went without. But I think at the end of the pay period my parents had about $15 to spend. I had to pay my own way through college. Bought my first car with no help. Slept on an air mattress for quite a while because I couldn't afford a bed while in college. I made it out just fine and have more than I need now. The way I look at it is this. When I get pulled over by the police, I never wonder if it was because of my skin color. When I get denied a job or promotion, I never have to wonder if it is because of my race. I have the privilege of knowing that if something bad happens to me, it is usually because of something that I can control, not something that I was born with. I personally get pissed off when people online or in person says check your privilege whenever we have a minor disagreement. It's only used when you have nothing to either back up your point or constructively argue against another. I grew up poor, without family, and treated like shite by police. I'm only doing better because I learned to work with people above me and not constantly attacking others. My parents were hard-working people who didn't have much money but always tried their best for me. My skin color may be privileged, as sad as that is to say, but my background isn't. So the phrase pisses me off sometimes. I'm a Mexican woman who's married to a white man, and that term pisses me the hell off too. The people usually saying it is from actual white privilege, people thinking everyone grew up wealthy like them. My husband grew up in the worst imaginable conditions ever. His whiteness in the shitty Nick neighborhood he grew up in actively worked against him and put his life in danger. His experience wasn't a unique one, so it's not like we can say he was the exception. Clearly there are issues that need to be worked out in the black minority communities. But how it took a turn into some anti-white bullshit is so nonsensical to me. Only toxic people try to get ahead by tearing others down. I grew up poor, around a lot of black people, and I do understand a lot of ways I have privileges because of my skin. But one thing that bothers me about white privilege is how often the narrative is coming from some very privileged person, often white, projecting their own racism onto others. I don't feel uncomfortable around black people. That's you. I didn't grow up with a bunch of financial privileges. That's you. Some white people have lived around black people their entire lives. We don't need lessons from a diversity expert who learned what we did as children in freaking grad school. I don't need to go to a racial sensitivity class so that Karen, with a master's in gender studies, can explain how I share her weird ass hang-ups and ignorance of people outside of her privileged clique. It's just so annoying. It's like having an obvious meth head come in your house and teach you about your non-existent meth problem. It means almost nothing to me, because I am not afraid or offended by the privilege I have. I have faced a lot of hardship in my life, and none of it was easy or fair. However, these things didn't happen to me because I am white. The likelihood of someone turning me down at a job offer because of my race in the US is very slim. The chances of a person lynching me are very slim. The chances of me, as a white woman, being randomly arrested off the street based on suspicious activity is slim to none. Does this mean I had an easy life? No. It's just that my life wasn't made harder because of my race. I think white privilege is bullshit. The only privilege is wealth. I couldn't agree with you more. Wealth is power, and it's what really gives you the upper hand in life. Another privilege is beauty. Goddamn do we humans love beautiful people. Beauty will literally open doors for you that regular people will never have the opportunity to. Look at Meghan Markle. She grew up with little and now she's a damn princess and everyone gives a shit about what her ass has to say as if she's so smart and insightful. She's gorgeous and all these opportunities have just opened up for her. I'm actually happy as hell for her. I'd probably have less of a negative reaction towards the term if the conversation I see surrounding it wasn't so toxic. I completely understand the academic concept of white privilege, well, maybe not completely, but I have a working understanding, and I think there are ways our society could be more inclusive. However, a lot of what I hear about white privilege seems to be your opinion matters less because you're white. Or I don't care if you were discriminated against, you're white. Which apart from being inherently racist doesn't actually solve the problem. It just creates yet more hostility. I've never been marginalized for the color of my skin like my son's father. But I do face discrimination when people find out I'm trans. I've never been pulled over 3 times in a month because I look like a drug dealer. I've never scared people off in a parking lot. I've never been denied a job. I've never been denied opportunities to better myself and my family. All of these things happen to my son's father on a daily basis. I can't stand him because of what he's done to me and my son. But he doesn't deserve discrimination based on his looks, the color of his skin, the way he wears his hair, or how he dresses himself. White privilege is a misdirection. It diverts blame for the mistreatment of non-whites away from the corrupt authority figures granting these privileges, or more specifically, denying them, onto other common people whose only crime is having been born white. It is the exact same type of misdirection as they took our jobs. Double quote. There was a stretch when it was just my mom, my sister, and me. We had next to no money. Things were bad for a while. To me, the phrase reminds me to be humble. Hearing white privilege has never made me angry because I realize that it doesn't mean my life has been easy thus far. It means that my life isn't made harder because of my skin color. There's a huge misunderstanding about what white privilege is. People hear it and think that it's being said to invalidate any and all struggles they've had in life. But that isn't the case. It's said to point out the fact that white people don't have to deal with systemic racism. More people need to understand that. Northern Irish immigrant. Parents and myself came to Canada with $70. Being white didn't guarantee us anything because the moment we opened our mouths it was what did they say, and people often turned away. My dad's first job, he literally hounded the place with phone calls for 2 weeks before they hired him just to stop him from calling. When we would cross the US border our car would be pulled over and ripped apart due to the troubles. It was main reason my parents opted to get a Canadian citizenship, as they heard this type of behavior wasn't as frequent. Would I say we had it as hard as some people of color? No. But I wouldn't say we had it as easy as even lower income domestic white people either. White privilege only exists for privileged whites. It is a deflective term. Privileged white people use to release themselves of the guilt they have from coming from a privileged background, while lacking any and all drive that their hard-working ancestors had. My grandfather wasn't an intelligent businessman who built himself a successful multi-million-dollar business. He was just white. And that's why he was able to do that. Life just isn't as easy for white people nowadays. Hey. Pass that blunt. Man? Yeah. It's just a lot more difficult to be successful nowadays. I mean, hell. I was only able to get a $175K job right out of college with my art history degree. As a secretariat friend of my dad's business. I should have spent another year backpacking through Africa. Although, I only have to go to work once a week. So I guess it's not that bad. Double quote. Grew up with no running water. The only way to cook was an electric skillet. I didn't know that people washed clothes or showered regularly. The house was barely above freezing in winter and I never had an actual bed. I don't care about the term. I take care of my family now. I'll never see it happen again. I'm white and grew up fairly low income. I later ended up with some health issues and was on disability for a while before being able to get a job I could grow into a career. My life was tough. But I never had my resume tossed into the no pile for having a non-white sounding name. Got suspended or sent home from school for having the wrong hairstyle. Or, when I got older, got profiled by the police the same way my non-white friends would. So being white definitely didn't contribute to the difficulty of my life. I grew up white and poor and rural. We were on and off welfare. White privilege means that my skin color isn't one of the things making my life harder. It also means that now that I'm in a white collar job, I can blend with my target demographic. Everyone assumes I'm one of them. Which sometimes I am. There are a lot of us blending in with the upper middle class. I'm in a pretty diverse area, SF Bay Area, and still being black is an anomaly in the white collar arena. Also, people aren't constantly asking me what I think of Colin Kaepernick or Candace Owen lol.